Hey YouTube, welcome back to our channel. My name is Elena,
And I'm Bjorn.
and we are Viking-age reenactors and living historians here to talk with you about your favorite Viking shows. So before we get into today's video, we just wanted to say that we hope that you enjoyed all of the Assassin's Creed content that we had. If you have not seen it yet, there are about 4 videos for you to watch from this past week. Secondly, we are going to be switching up our schedule just a smidge. Instead of releasing videos on Sundays, we're instead going to be releasing them on Monday mornings, just like today. So keep an eye out for our videos on the new schedule. And finally, now that we're done with Ragnarok, we are going to be starting a new series, of course, and we have chosen to do Beforeigners mainly because it only has 6 episodes as opposed to 24 of Vinland Saga, so we should be able to get through that a little bit quicker. So keep an eye out for that starting next week.
So today we're actually going to be watching a short film called Fated, which is put on by the company Grimfrost. For those of you who don't know, Grimfrost is a Swedish-based company that focuses not only on just selling historical Viking replicas and recreations, supplying TV shows like Beforeigners and Vikings, but they also sell and distribute modern equipment and apparel as well. That's all about bringing the Viking culture into the modern world. I also happen to be lucky enough to be one of their brand ambassadors. So if you're interested in shopping or taking a look at what they have to offer, use the affiliate link below that will list in the description. It allows you to do some shopping through their website at no extra charge and give us a little bit of kickback, which we greatly appreciate. And with that, we'll get into Fated. So the whole point of creating Fated was to make a historically accurate depiction of Vikings. This is a short film, so it's only about 10 minutes long or so, but the other cool feature about it is that it's episodal. So this is episode 1, and it's supposed to be part of a larger series.
And the other cool thing about this series is that it's being directed by Peter Frentzen, who played Harold Fairhair in Vikings, so I'm actually excited to see what he does behind the camera. For those of you who have not seen the short yet, we will link that in the description below as well. Go check it out before you watch this because we don't want to spoil anything.
So without further ado, already off to a good start.
The fate of Norns await us all, both gods and men. They spin the length of our life thread, ruling our destiny. There's no escape.
Oh, I
Yes.
love this already.
Yeah, I'm already obsessed with this. First off, before we actually get into what we just saw, use of Wardruna was amazing already. Awesome use of Monomarth lyrics. The fate of Norns awaits us all.
And also talking about, starting with the Norns. Everyone's fate is spun by the Norns, men and gods. So that was just such a perfect representation of that.
The Norns, which are these mythical beings, essentially, that exist in the Norse mythology, there's 3 that basically represent the past, what may happen, and what will happen. And they spin everyone's thread, essentially, the thread of their life. And, like any thread, it has a finite length to it, and it ends when they decide that it ends, like how she
Just cut it.
really abruptly just cut the thread, and that's kind of like the life ending, and then starting up anew. And I think that's a really beautifully artistic way to kind of portray that, and it's something that they tried to that in the Viking Age they would reflect with Völva and Seeresses, magicians. They would essentially spin like a esoteric thread as they sat at the high seat, while they were, foreseeing the future and stuff. So it's a really cool representation and really cool symbolism to invoke in this. We have a time setting.
965
Yes.
AD.
10th century Sweden.
And there are only my men and I.
So it's being narrated by Peter right now. That's his voice.
And the gods are all dead.
Oh.
But still, they weep for my failure. Have we lost you? Because we have lost everything else.
Already the costuming is pretty great as far as we can see. Just with the belts and the fixtures and the pouch and the clothing, it all looks really good. We did see briefly some like leather like hoods or some overthrows, and there isn't any historical evidence for like leather clothing necessarily.
It's, you know, the same adage, and we've talked ad nauseum on our channel about it, but it's just the fact that depending on whether you want to base your knowledge based off of specifically what we have found versus what was probable back in the age. And right now, the leather clothing is probable because we know that they would have had access to it, essentially, in making it, but we have never found anything. The exception to that is that we have found leather shoes. You know, the reason why we know specifically what style of shoes they wore, or one of the styles of shoes that they wore, the turn shoes, is because we have found those, and those are leather as well.
And I feel like those are just, it's just so lucky that we were able to find that kind of thing. As I feel like they're using it sparingly enough and intelligently enough to make it blend in and kind of enhance the mood. Okay, so it's in Old Norse.
It is Old Norse, yeah. I remember hearing that about this. They are using legit Old Norse.
That's awesome. So they're using reconstructed Old Norse, which is amazing. I'm willing to bet there is some connection with Jackson Crawford, because he also represents Grimfrost. Mm-hmm. I like how they're doing this. You know, I mean, clearly he saw something in the water and thought he was bleeding, and they're taking that as just a bad omen, which makes sense if you're a little bit more primitive and believe in omens. That's the thing as a culture. It's definitely something that they were conscientious of and aware of, and paid mind to. As the older guy kind of brought up, it's you can only be the best you can be. Just push forward and do what you can. It's that idea of there's nothing you can do about it. If you're gonna die, you're gonna die, and the only thing you can do is your best. We're starting to see a little bit of stature as well with the clothing. The older guy, a little bit more wizened and aged.
I was actually going to mention that they're showing wealth through the clothing here.
Exactly.
Depending on what they're wearing, you can tell about how rich that person is and who is the higher stature in the group.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is really nice, because that's exactly how you would have been able to tell.
Yep, exactly. And you can tell it with him too, because he's got a little bit of like a proper hat with the panels, fur lined, and mostly in his clothing, because he had a couple different layers, and he had a kaftan, like a cloak on. Sorry, a coat, not a cloak. But it was all that kind of like ruddy, reddish orange kind of color with the pigment. And we know historically red and blue were very common colors, but in the richness of the color was where the wealth was shown. And so his was a little bit more of like a pigmented, richer color than what you might see of something more, worn and faded and almost like pinkish in the hue. As well as the decorative border around the cuffs and like the fur lining and stuff that he had. And the same with this other character who was bathing, where he threw on like a little bit of a coat with that. It's a little bit.
It's more faded.
It's a little bit faded, but it was like that bluish hue, and it still had like the nice little trim and stuff on it. So it's still. It might not say he's the most wealthy, but he's definitely of a higher rank. A higher tier in society. Oh, nice, a whole array of.
It just looks so good.
It really does.
It's nice missing.
What?
He has a holster on his belt, but the knife isn't in it.
No.
The gods have changed. But I will never beg for honor.
I love how they're already they're able to hint at like the disparity between heathenism and Christianity already so palpably in this.
It also speaks to the changing times that they must have faced too, for people who didn't want to convert to Christianity specifically as the country changed around them. This is what they would have been faced with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Either conversion or this level of tension around them.
Absolutely, because this is the height when Sweden started to become really Christianized and started to convert as like a nation. I know they're gonna have a sit down and a chat with like the local, chieftain or head figure in the village. So I'm excited to see this interaction. And already, again, he's dressed in very saturated reds. You know, so it kind of shows the disparity even between their, you know, the leaders there. His wife.
And that's the thing too, like, I love how you can tell just from looking at this frame who the wife is.
Exactly. Yep.
Because she's wearing, again, the same saturated colors, and you can tell that she has a lot of beads on her as well, which is basically diamonds of the Viking age.
Essentially, yeah.
So, like, just even from a glimpse of the frame, you can tell that is the lady of the house. And
Yep.
I love that.
Yep, absolutely.
Housekeeping. Who will fight?
Men,
Straight to the point.
det öppnar ett vir härjon samma.
I love the fact that his first instinct was to reach for a sword when he got called out like that, because people back in those ages would keep weapons on them constantly within easy reach, essentially. So the moment that he gets called out, you know, he's just out comes the sword.
I think it's a little bit of an older period one, so it could even be something that was passed down. I can't recall
Could be
exactly
like a
the
family
pattern.
sword.
Yeah, but it's cool that you mentioned that too, because in addition to that, just kind of to keep going with all these layers, it's a very pagan Norse thing, because in the Havamal, the sayings from the wise one from Odin himself, he tells people that they shouldn't be more than a step away from their weapons. They shouldn't be more than an arm's length away, because you never know what may happen on your journeys. And so even though he's Christianized, even though he's converted, he's still adhering to those old pagan, traditions, and those mentalities and the way to live. It's still so ingrained in them, even though they've converted.
En själ här, Heathenry.
Därför vill att allt så.
I feel like that's kind of hearkening on a leader who's kind of past his prime and maybe not fit for it anymore. That's kind of a hint of, kind of questioning his manliness almost.
That was definitely a call out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey,
And
if you want to keep your honor,
he
will come.
Exactly, yeah. And he's looking around and all of his men are just kind of watching him, and he looked at his head honcho, who's just like, yeah, you gotta go.
Yeah.
And it's also important to think about too, because when the Vikings or when the Norse would convert, it didn't mean that they would stop raiding. It was still a part of their custom and their culture. So there were heathen and Christian Vikings, because that's just how they made a living. Beautiful. Love the ship. I like his coat too. It's got like a Eastern
It's like a little bit
influence.
more Slavic.
Yeah, it's got like that Slavic influence. Oh, that spear.
I am not afraid. Odin, can you see me now?
Oh, I got like chills at the very end of it, honestly. I think it was in Krakumol, which is the last words of Ragnarok. I think there was some kind of line of, a man fated to hang can never drown.
Right.
And I am in love with that line, because it's so powerful and striking to me, and it makes so much sense, and it puts that frame of mind into something that you can kind of relate to a little bit and like understand.
It's very difficult for us to know the mentality that they had back in the Viking Age.
Absolutely.
We sometimes talk about this as like, we know that this was their mentality, but
Right.
just looking at the sagas and looking at the mythology and things that were written down, we can surmise that as part of their mentality, it was very much like that. If you went into a situation, if you were fated to die in that situation, then you might as well just make the best of it and take down as many people as you can. If you're in a battle, you might as well just go down fighting.
Exactly.
And if you're not, then, fight your heart out and you'll live to see another day regardless of what happens.
Exactly. Like it's honestly, it's a win-win.
It removes that fear of the unknown.
Absolutely. But no, this was great. Like the costuming was awesome. As to be expected by a company that literally produces historical clothing and accoutrement. The setting and the location was beautiful. The screenwriting, like the script of the screenplay was really well done. It was very simplistic. Yeah, no, nothing but respect and good words for this. This was great.
Yeah, this is... as historically accurate as you're going to get.
Yeah,
honestly.
this was actually the most historic production we've ever seen.
Yeah.
This was the most historically correct thing we've ever seen, so like 10 out of 10.
Yep.
It's a 10 out of 10 rating. Now, everything that we review is based on our review of this as
Yikes.
the setting for it.
Good luck to everyone else.
Yeah, but also tops to Grimfrost. Like, I'm so proud of them.
Yeah, no,
Well done,
this is
guys.
amazing.
Well done. I'm so happy about it. So, for today's video, we're actually going to be watching a short film called...
Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you can be notified of our future videos. And we will see you in the next one.